From a loaded gun audition that could have ended badly to spawning iconic Chappelle's Show sketches, CB4's behind-the-scenes secrets are as wild as the gangsta rap it parodies. This hip-hop mockumentary hides surprising connections to Beastie Boys royalty, unexpected alt-rock cameos, and box office triumphs against Mother Nature herself. Fact 1. Charlie Murphy's loaded gun audition. Charlie Murphy's audition for the role of Gusto in CB4 is one of the wildest casting stories in hip-hop cinema history, and it almost went horribly wrong. When Murphy first read for the part, Chris Rock felt something was missing and told him he needed to be meaner and more intimidating for the callback. Murphy took that direction to a whole new level that nobody expected. For his second audition, Charlie Murphy showed up with two imposing henchmen flanking him on either side, immediately setting a tense atmosphere in the room. Then, during the scene, Murphy reached into his jacket and pulled out a real Glock 9mm handgun that was actually loaded with live ammunition. The casting team and producers were stunned, unsure whether they were watching an audition or witnessing something dangerous unfold right in front of them. The gun wasn't a prop. It wasn't cleared with anyone beforehand, and Murphy made no mention that he was bringing a real weapon to a professional audition. He simply committed to the direction Rock had given him with an intensity that left no doubt he could embody the threatening presence of Gusto, the real gangster whose identity the main characters steal in the movie. The boldness and authenticity of Murphy's approach immediately secured him the role, though it's safe to say the production team was probably equal parts impressed and terrified. This audition story became legendary among the cast and crew, representing the kind of fearless commitment Murphy brought to every project. It also perfectly captured the blurred line between performance and reality that would become central to CB4's satire about rappers manufacturing dangerous personas. Murphy's willingness to push boundaries, even in ways that made people genuinely uncomfortable, helped create one of the film's most memorable and genuinely menacing characters. Fact 2. The birth of Chappelle's true Hollywood stories. During the production of CB4, Charlie Murphy became the unofficial entertainment director on set, regaling the cast and crew with outrageous stories from his years running with his brother Eddie Murphy's celebrity entourage. These weren't just casual anecdotes, they were vivid, hilarious, and often unbelievable tales about encounters with some of the biggest names in music, including detailed accounts of wild nights with Rick James and basketball games with Prince. Murphy had a gift for storytelling that went beyond simply recounting events. He would act out different characters, recreate conversations with perfect timing, and deliver punchlines that had everyone on set doubled over with laughter between takes. The stories became so popular that people would gather around him during breaks, just to hear what happened next. Chris Rock was particularly captivated by these tales, recognizing that Murphy had stumbled onto comedic gold without even trying. Years later, when Dave Chappelle was developing material for Chappelle's Show, these same stories resurfaced and became the foundation for one of television's most iconic comedy segments. Charlie Murphy's true Hollywood stories transformed those on-set anecdotes into legendary sketches that defined a generation of comedy, with Murphy himself narrating his experiences while actors reenacted the absurd scenarios he described. The Rick James episode, featuring the now immortal line about cocaine being a powerful substance, became a cultural phenomenon. Chris Rock later admitted publicly that he deeply regretted not thinking to use those stories himself for a project, acknowledging that he'd witnessed comedic brilliance during CB4's production but failed to capitalize on it. The irony is that CB4's set became the incubator for comedy content that would achieve far greater cultural impact than the movie itself, proving that sometimes the best material happens when the cameras aren't rolling. Fact 3. The director married a Beastie Boy. Tamra Davis, the director of CB4, had her professional and personal worlds collide in 1993 when she married Mike D, the founding member and rapper of the legendary hip-hop group, the Beastie Boys. The timing couldn't have been more cinematic, as this marriage happened the exact same year that CB4 was released in theaters, creating an interesting connection between the film's hip-hop satire and Davis's real-life immersion in rap culture's elite circles. What makes this story even more interesting is how Davis juggled her romantic relationship with the demanding schedule of directing a major studio comedy. According to accounts from the production, on the very last day of filming CB4, Davis wrapped the final shots and then immediately jetted off to meet Mike D, essentially rushing from the director's chair straight into her relationship with one of hip-hop's most respected figures. This wasn't just a casual romance, it was a partnership between two creative forces in the music and film industries. The marriage connected Davis to hip-hop royalty at precisely the moment she was establishing herself as a director capable of handling music-driven narratives. Her relationship with Mike D gave her an insider's perspective on rap culture that few Hollywood directors possessed, even though she'd already proven her credentials by directing dozens of music videos for major artists before taking on CB4. The Beastie Boys themselves represented the evolution of hip-hop from underground culture to mainstream phenomenon, much like the trajectory Davis was navigating with her film career. Davis and Mike D's marriage lasted over 2 decades and produced 2 children before they eventually divorced in 2016. During their time together, Davis continued directing films and television while Mike D remained active with the Beastie Boys, creating a creative household that bridged multiple artistic communities. Fact 4. Chris Rock recreated his own crack scene. Chris Rock pulled off one of the most clever self-referential moments in CB4 by deliberately recreating a scene from his own acting past, and most viewers probably never noticed the connection. In New Jack City, the gritty 1991 crime drama about the crack epidemic, Rock played Pookie, a desperate crack addict whose smoking scene became one of the film's most memorable and disturbing moments. 2 years later, Rock decided to make fun of his own dramatic work in the most specific way possible. In CB4, Rock meticulously recreated that exact crack-smoking scene, matching not just the general idea, but the precise details of his performance from New Jack City. He wore the same style of clothing, reproduced the same facial expressions and mannerisms, and even mimicked the physical movements he'd used when portraying Pookie's addiction. This wasn't a loose homage or a general parody of drug scenes in movies. It was Rock deliberately making fun of himself by duplicating his earlier performance, beat for beat. The meta-reference works on multiple levels because it shows Rock's willingness to mock his own dramatic work just as ruthlessly as CB4 mocks gangsta rap culture. While New Jack City treated addiction as a serious social issue and Rock delivered a genuinely affecting performance, CB4 uses the recreation to satirize how movies exploit harsh realities for entertainment value. Rock essentially became both the actor and the critic, acknowledging the absurdity of his earlier role while still respecting the original film's intentions. Most audiences watching CB4 probably recognize the scene as a general parody of drug movies from that era, but those familiar with Rock's work in New Jack City would have caught the inside joke. It demonstrated Rock's self-awareness and willingness to be the target of his own comedy, a trait that would define much of his career. Fact 5. The town name is a screenwriter's name. The fictional California town that serves as CB4's supposed hometown location isn't just a random name chosen because it sounds vaguely urban or street credible. It's actually a hidden tribute to one of the people responsible for bringing the film to life. Robert Locash was one of CB4's screenwriters, and the creative team decided to immortalize his contribution by naming the crew's fake hometown after him, creating a layer of inside baseball humor that most viewers would never catch. In the film, the members of CB4 repeatedly claim to represent Locash, California, using the location to establish their street credibility and authenticate their gangster personas. The town becomes part of their fabricated origin story, a place they reference to make themselves sound more legitimate and dangerous. The irony is that Locash doesn't exist, which perfectly fits the movie's central theme about manufactured authenticity in hip-hop culture. The rappers are pretending to be from a place that's as fake as their entire personas. What makes this naming choice particularly clever is how it mirrors the real-world practice of rappers repping their neighborhoods and cities as crucial elements of their identities. From Compton to Queens to Atlanta, geographic authenticity has always mattered in hip-hop. So giving CB4 a specific hometown grounds their fake credentials in the same tradition that real rappers use to establish credibility. The fact that the town is named after a screenwriter adds another layer of meta-commentary about the constructed nature of all entertainment. Robert Locash co-wrote the screenplay with Chris Rock and Nelson George, helping shape the satirical edge that made CB4 resonate with audiences who understood the hip-hop culture it was lampooning. Having a town literally named after him became a subtle acknowledgement of his creative contribution to a film that was all about the gap between image and reality. Fact 6. A snowstorm couldn't stop. Box office success CB4 faced a natural disaster during what should have been its most crucial weekend at the box office, but somehow the film managed to triumph anyway in what became one of the most dramatic opening weekends in early 90s cinema. When CB4 debuted in March of 1993, an absolutely massive snowstorm hammered the entire east coast of the United States, creating conditions that would normally spell doom for a film's commercial prospects. The storm wasn't just inconvenient weather, it was the kind of epic blizzard that shut down major cities and kept millions of people trapped in their homes instead of venturing out to movie theaters. In critical markets like New York, Philadelphia, and Washington, D.C., the snowstorm reduced box office receipts by approximately 1/3 compared to what theaters would normally expect during a major film opening. Theater owners watched helplessly as screenings played to empty seats because audiences simply couldn't or wouldn't brave the dangerous conditions to see a comedy about fake gangsta rappers. Despite this meteorological catastrophe working against it, CB4 still managed to claim the #1 spot at the box office with $6.122 million in ticket sales. What makes this victory even more remarkable is how close the race actually was. The film beat its nearest competitor, a movie called Born Yesterday, by less than $6,000, making it one of the tightest photo finishes in box office history. A few hundred more people choosing to stay home because of the snow could have completely changed the outcome. The success proved that CB4 had genuine audience appeal that transcended weather conditions, and it demonstrated the power of hip-hop culture to draw crowds even under adverse circumstances. The film's ability to overcome such a significant obstacle during its opening weekend showed that Chris Rock's satirical vision had connected with moviegoers. Fact 7. Butthole Surfers made an uncredited cameo. One of the strangest and most unexpected appearances in CB4 came from the Butthole Surfers, an experimental punk rock band from Texas known for their chaotic live performances, disturbing imagery, and avant-garde approach to music. The band showed up in the mockumentary segments of CB4 as interviewed guests, creating one of the most bizarre crossover moments between rap culture and alternative rock that 1993 cinema had to offer. The Butthole Surfers were about as far from mainstream hip-hop as you could get, having built their reputation on psychedelic noise rock, controversial stage shows, and a deliberately confrontational artistic vision. Their music incorporated elements of punk, psychedelia, and experimental sound collage, appealing primarily to underground rock audiences who embraced weirdness and artistic provocation. Finding them in a Chris Rock comedy about gangsta rap is like discovering a death metal band at a jazz festival. It just doesn't make obvious sense until you think about the mockumentary format. Their inclusion speaks to the film's willingness to embrace absurdity and mix cultural references in unexpected ways, much like the real-world genre blending that was happening in early 90s alternative culture. The cameo went uncredited, meaning casual viewers probably had no idea who these unusual individuals were or why they were being interviewed about hip-hop culture. For fans of the Butthole Surfers, though, spotting them in CB4 must have been a surreal moment of recognition. The band's appearance also reflects director Tamra Davis's background in music videos and her connections to alternative music scenes beyond hip-hop. Davis had worked across multiple genres and understood that comedy works best when it includes unexpected elements that catch audiences off guard. Having the Butthole Surfers pop up in a rap mockumentary served that purpose perfectly. Fact 8. Isaac Hayes' scene was a deep-cut callback. The end credits scene in CB4 features what appears to be a simple comedic bit with legendary soul singer and composer Isaac Hayes, but it's actually a carefully constructed callback to an earlier collaboration between Hayes and Chris Rock that only fans of both actors' work would recognize. This scene directly spoofs a nearly identical conversation that took place between the same two performers in the 1988 comedy I'm Gonna Get You Sucka, creating a through line across two separate films made 5 years apart. In I'm Gonna Get You Sucka, a blaxploitation parody directed by Keenan Ivory Wayans, Chris Rock played a customer at a rib joint owned by Isaac Hayes' character. The scene featured a specific type of comedic haggling and back-and-forth dialogue that became memorable to fans of that film. When CB4's creative team decided to bring Hayes in for a cameo, they chose to recreate that exact dynamic and conversational style, essentially allowing Rock and Hayes to revisit their earlier comedic chemistry. This kind of deep-cut reference rewards loyal fans who pay attention to actors' entire bodies of work while remaining invisible to casual viewers who might not have seen "I'm Gonna Get You, Sucka." The callback also connects CB4 to the tradition of black comedy films from the late 80s and early 90s, acknowledging the cinematic lineage that made Rock's mockumentary possible. "I'm Gonna Get You." Sucka had parodied blaxploitation films, and now CB4 was parodying hip-hop culture while also nodding to that earlier parody. Isaac Hayes himself was a perfect choice for this type of meta-reference because his career spanned so many different aspects of black entertainment, from composing the Shaft soundtrack to voice acting to appearing in comedies. Having him appear in both films created a sense of continuity in the world of black comedy cinema. Fact 9. Released alongside a nearly identical film. In one of the strangest coincidences in film history, CB4 was filmed and released at almost the exact same time as Fear of a Black Hat, another hip-hop mockumentary with a virtually identical premise about a fictional rap group being followed by documentary filmmakers. The two productions had no connection to each other and developed completely independently. Yet they both arrived in 1993 with the same satirical targets and similar comedic approaches to mocking gangsta rap culture. Fear of a Black Hat actually premiered first at the Sundance Film Festival in January of 1993, giving it the technical distinction of being the earlier film in terms of public screening. However, CB4 beat it to general theatrical release by hitting multiplexes in March of 1993, meaning more people saw Chris Rock's version before Fear of a Black Hat made it to wider audiences. This created an odd situation where each film could claim a different kind of priority, with Fear of a Black Hat being the Sundance discovery and CB4 being the mainstream theatrical release. The similarities between the two films go beyond just the basic premise. Both use the mockumentary format popularized by This Is Spinal Tap. Both featured fictional rap groups with over-the-top personas, and both satirized the authenticity obsession and manufactured toughness that characterized early 90s hip-hop. Even stranger, both films shared an actor named Deezer D, who appeared in different roles in each production, becoming the human link between these twin satirical visions. The parallel development of these films suggests that multiple comedy creators were observing the same cultural phenomenon and arriving at similar conclusions about how to satirize it. Gangsta rap had become commercially dominant by the early 90s, and its contradictions between real street experience and entertainment performance were ripe for mockumentary treatment. Fact 10. The director was second choice. Tamra Davis wasn't actually the first filmmaker that Universal Pictures approached to direct CB4, a fact that might surprise people familiar with how perfectly her sensibilities matched the project. The studio originally offered the directing job to Rupert Wainwright, a British director and music video veteran who had worked with artists across various genres. When Wainwright turned down the opportunity to helm the hip-hop mockumentary, the studio moved on to their second choice, which turned out to be one of those fortunate rejections that led to a better outcome. Wainwright's decision to pass on CB4 opened the door for Tamra Davis, who brought a specific set of skills and experiences that proved ideal for the material. Davis had already established herself as one of the most prolific and respected music video directors of the late 80s and early 90s, creating videos for artists ranging from Tone Loc to NWA to Sonic Youth. Her work demonstrated an ability to capture authentic urban culture while also understanding the constructed nature of music video imagery, which aligned perfectly with CB4's themes about manufactured personas. Davis's extensive background in hip-hop music videos meant she understood the visual language and cultural codes of rap better than most Hollywood directors at that time. She knew how to frame performances, how to capture the swagger and style that made hip-hop visually distinctive, and how to work with artists who weren't trained actors. These skills translated directly into making CB4 feel authentic, even while satirizing its subject matter, allowing the film to mock gangsta rap without coming across as an outsider's mean-spirited attack. The fact that Davis was technically the second choice also highlights how subjective the directing selection process can be, and how one person's rejection becomes another's breakthrough opportunity. Fact 11. Shaq. During his ill-fated rapping days, CB4 captured Shaquille O'Neal at a very specific and somewhat awkward moment in his career when the NBA superstar was seriously pursuing a parallel path as a rapper, an endeavor that one film reviewer memorably described as his ill-fated rapping days. O'Neal's cameo in the film serves as a time capsule from an era when the 7'1" center believed he could dominate both basketball courts and hip-hop charts with equal success. Shaq released his debut rap album, Shaq Diesel, in October of 1993, just months after CB4 hit theaters, and the album actually achieved platinum status and reached number 25 on the Billboard charts. Despite that commercial success, his rapping career never achieved the credibility or longevity that his basketball career enjoyed. Critics and hip-hop purists largely dismissed his music as a novelty act, the product of a famous athlete trying to leverage his sports celebrity into musical relevance rather than genuine artistic expression. Having Shaq appear in CB4 created an unintentional layer of irony because the film was specifically satirizing rappers who manufactured tough personas and credentials they didn't really possess. While Shaq wasn't pretending to be a gangster, he was attempting to establish rap credibility primarily because of his fame in a completely different field, which touched on similar themes of authenticity that CB4 explored. His cameo represented the kind of crossover celebrity culture that would only become more prevalent in the following decades. Looking back at CB4 now, Shaq's appearance stands as documentary evidence of that brief period when major athletes believed they could seamlessly transition into hip-hop careers. The ill-fated description proved accurate, as O'Neal eventually refocused entirely on basketball and building his post-sports business empire, largely abandoning his musical ambitions. Fact 12. First major studio rap film, CB4, holds a significant place in film history as the first rap film to be released by a major Hollywood studio, marking a crucial moment when mainstream entertainment corporations decided that hip-hop culture could generate theatrical profits beyond small independent productions. Universal Pictures distributed CB4, bringing the full resources and marketing reach of a major studio to a film that centered entirely on rap music and hip-hop culture at a time when that remained a risky commercial proposition. Before CB4, most films dealing with hip-hop had been smaller independent productions or documentaries that reached limited audiences through alternative distribution channels. While movies like House Party and Boys in the Hood had achieved success, they weren't specifically about the rap industry itself the way CB4 was. By having a major studio commit significant resources to a mockumentary about fictional gangster rappers, CB4 validated hip-hop as a subject worthy of mainstream Hollywood investment. The significance of this first-mover status can't be overstated when looking at the wave of hip-hop cinema that followed throughout the 1990s and into the 2000s. CB4 proved to studio executives that rap culture could sell tickets beyond just urban markets and that audiences would embrace films explicitly about the music industry's inner workings. This opened doors for countless other projects that might never have received studio backing if CB4 had failed commercially. Universal's willingness to distribute the film also meant CB4 received a wide theatrical release with professional marketing campaigns, press junkets, and the kind of promotional support that independent films could never access. Chris Rock's involvement certainly helped convince the studio that the project had commercial potential, but it still required corporate decision-makers to believe that a rap parody could find a broad audience. Fact 13. CB4 became rap industry slang. The movie's premise resonated so deeply with real-world dynamics in the hip-hop industry that CB4 transcended its origins as a film title and became actual slang used by people within rap culture itself. The term evolved into both a noun and a verb used to describe and criticize rappers who manufactured gangster personas despite coming from middle-class backgrounds with no authentic street experience or credibility. Essentially, to CB4, someone meant to expose them as a fake, or to call yourself CB4 was to admit you were performing a character rather than living the reality you portrayed in your music. This linguistic evolution happened because the film's central satire hit so close to home for the rap industry. Throughout the 1990s and into the 2000s, hip-hop struggled with questions of authenticity as the genre became increasingly commercial and lucrative. Rappers who grew up in suburban comfort discovered they could sell more records by pretending to have criminal backgrounds, gang affiliations, and street experience they never actually possessed. CB4's mockumentary format exposed this exact phenomenon, showing how easily personas could be constructed and how eager audiences were to believe in manufactured authenticity. The term gained particular traction when industry insiders and journalists needed shorthand to describe this type of fraudulent self-presentation without writing lengthy explanations. Instead of saying, "This rapper is pretending to have a dangerous background for commercial purposes despite coming from a stable middle-class family," people could simply say, "He's CB4," and everyone understood exactly what that meant. The phrase carried implications of both mockery and serious criticism, depending on context. What makes this slang evolution particularly notable is how it demonstrates art influencing the culture it satirizes. Chris Rock and his collaborators created a fictional film that became a real-world reference point, giving the industry language to discuss its own contradictions. Fact 14. The extended TV version escape scene. When CB4 aired on the FX network, viewers got to see additional footage that never appeared in the theatrical release, including a completely new scene that extended the story of the real MC Gusto after his imprisonment. This television version included a jailbreak sequence showing Gusto escaping from prison alongside a white inmate, with the two fugitives somehow ending up on a golf course in what became an absurdist moment that pushed the film's comedy into even more ridiculous territory. The scene plays out with Gusto and his fellow escapee making their way across the manicured grass of what's presumably a country club or public golf course, an incongruous setting for escaped convicts that creates immediate visual comedy. As they navigate this unexpected environment, the white inmate begins making stupid and ignorant comments, the kind of casual racism or cultural insensitivity that immediately tests Gusto's patience. Unable to tolerate the man's stupidity any longer, Gusto finally knocks him out cold, presumably leaving him unconscious on the golf course while he continues his escape alone. This extended scene serves multiple purposes within CB4's satirical framework. It continues the running joke about Gusto being the only genuinely dangerous person in the entire story, while everyone else just pretends to be hard. It also adds another layer of absurdity to a film already filled with ridiculous situations, pushing the mockumentary format into broader comedy territory. The golf course setting specifically contrasts the stereotypical prison escape narrative with upper-class leisure spaces, creating social commentary through location choices. The fact that this scene only appeared in the television version raises questions about why it was cut from the theatrical release. Likely, the filmmakers felt it disrupted the pacing or extended the runtime beyond what worked for theater audiences. Fact 15. Director's feminist battle. Over Bad Girls. Shortly after CB4's release established Tamra Davis as a director capable of handling major studio productions, she landed what should have been a career-advancing opportunity directing Bad Girls, a Western film starring Drew Barrymore, Madeline Stowe, Mary Stuart Masterson, and Andie MacDowell. However, this project turned into a professional nightmare that demonstrated the challenges female directors faced in 1990s Hollywood when their creative visions conflicted with studio expectations. Davis approached Bad Girls with a feminist perspective, seeking to tell a story about women in the Old West that subverted traditional genre conventions and gave the female characters genuine agency and complexity rather than making them accessories to male-driven narratives. This directorial vision apparently clashed with the studio's expectations for a more conventional Western that happened to have female leads. After only 9 days of filming, 20th Century Fox fired Davis from the production, replacing her with Jonathan Kaplan in a move that suggested the studio wanted a safer, more traditional approach. The dismissal sparked a remarkable show of loyalty from Drew Barrymore, who was Davis's friend and had worked with her on previous projects. Barrymore threatened to leave the production entirely in protest of Davis's firing, demonstrating the kind of solidarity between women in Hollywood that remained relatively rare during that era. While Barrymore ultimately stayed with the film, Her willingness to risk her involvement sent a clear message about how Davis's firing was perceived by people who worked with her. The Bad Girls incident became a cautionary tale about the limited creative freedom afforded to female directors, especially when they challenged genre conventions or brought explicitly feminist perspectives to traditionally masculine material. For Davis, it was a frustrating setback that came just as CB4 had proven her commercial viability.